Today on the Overcorrection, we are very happy to announce that the BMC elections, the long-awaited BMC elections delayed since 2022, have finally been announced, and they are going to take place this year between October and November, apparently. Let's hope, fingers crossed. But yes, after many years of delays, the Supreme Court has finally put its foot down and said, enough Netflix and chill. Time to get these done. Now, we've spoken about the general election, we've spoken about the state election cycle, we've covered them on this show. These have been heavily discussed, heavily talked about in Mumbai. Everyone is aware of what is going on. But what about our BMC elections? What about these elections that haven't happened for so many years? This is a body that I argue will affect Mumbaikars' lives far more than whichever party is in power at the center or at the state. This is the most important election that you don't care about. So we are very happy on this show to be now partnering with Lok Tantra. Yes, Lok Tantra is a political non-profit run by my friend Tannisha Aversekar. She's in studio with us today. She's going to be coming on later to talk more about the BMC. But before we get into that, I thought we would just do a little bit of the basics of the BMC, how it works and why it is so important that you take part in these elections. So before we get into the intricacies of the BMC, let's take a step back and just understand what are the working parts of the BMC and who comprises these working parts. So imagine the BMC was a private company, because I think that is nomenclature we are much more familiar with in today's day and age. If the BMC were a private company, who are the employees of the BMC? The employees of the BMC are government-appointed IAS officers, headed by a CEO who would be the municipal commissioner. These are people who are not elected but appointed. Now, who are the shareholders of this company? Well, it's people like you and me. We are the citizens who own the city, and it is our city. And because of that, we become the shareholders. Now, what is our job as shareholders really? Well, what shareholders do in private organizations is that they elect the board of directors. The board of directors is elected by the shareholders to provide oversight and lead general direction on how the company should function. And that makes sense, right? Like, why would the employees of the company decide where it's going? It should be the owners. And the employees should be in charge of putting our plan into action. Well, unfortunately, since 2022, this has not been the case because we have not had elections, and the elected seats, the board seats, have gone vacant. That is the big problem, and that is why these elections are actually extremely important, because we are going to get back our citizen oversight on the BMC, an extremely large body that is in charge of so many things of tremendous importance to you. Everything from your water to your air to your roads to your sanitation, everything is controlled by them in this city. And it is time for us to look into how these funds are being spent through a representative democracy. So with the help of Lok Tantra, we're going to be giving you a lot of updates leading up to this BMC election. It can range from important things you should know about your constituency, who is actually running from different parties in your constituency, on what agenda are they running, what is their manifesto for you. We will try to get these people on and ask these questions, and we're going to keep you updated in the build up to this election, which is, like I said, hopefully happening in October and November. Now we've taken a very clinical, sanitized look at how the BMC should run and why it should run a particular way. But we're going to actually now talk to Tannisha a bit more about what actually happens and what might an actual corporator do and what does he have to do to create some change. What is his job? Please, guys, welcome Tannisha to the show. So everyone, we are back in studio with Tannisha Aversekar.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the BMC today, some, finer details of it, talking about their budget. Before we get into this, I would urge you to go watch the last episode we did with Tannisha. That was a really fun one.
That was a really fun one.
It's about why elite Indians don't vote. And I think if you watch that, it can certainly play some part in whether you take part in this BMC election or not.
Yeah.
Which we highly recommend you do.
Yes.
That being said, these elections may be a fond memory for you because they have not taken place since 2017. So, since we've not had a corporator in our city or actually in this state, in the entire state.
The corporations have ended at different times, so it's not blanket, but...
Fair enough. But Mumbai has not had a corporator since 2022, and a lot of other corporations have been lying without corporators, like PMC, Pune Municipal Corporation, has not had elections. Several other districts in the state have not had elections. So the mandate from the Supreme Court has actually gone out to all the
entire-
bodies
yeah.
in Maharashtra.
Yeah.
So we hopefully are going to have elections and corporators soon. So what does a corporator do?
In a way, a corporator is sort of the communication link between you and the local body. It is his job to represent your interests and your demands and what it is that you want. So, in that sense, they're responsible for coming up with the agenda and the general direction that you want to take the city in on some level. They also have funds of their own, which they're allowed to spend to fix hyper local issues. So everything from like fixing a footpath to building more benches, improving the quality of gardens, street lights, all of that falls under their purview. They get about like 1 crore in development funds, another 60 lakh in corporator funds. Actually, they're not allowed to, they can propose to the BMC how they would like to spend them. And then the BMC has to actually approve their proposal, and then it gets tendered, and there's a whole process that happens.
These are the administrators in the BMC who have
Correct.
to approve it,
Yes,
right?
the
So
officials.
So what we talked about before, we're talking about corporators who are the elected officials.
Yes.
And then the administrators who are government appointed. Right? So each corporator gets 1.6 crores of discretionary funds to spend on their district or their locality
Yeah.
or their constituency. There are 236 such wards.
Yeah. So that was the last time, 1.6 crores is how much the corporators, I think, or the last time that they got funds. After that, almost as much as 3 crores has been appointed by the state government per ward in the absence of corporators as well.
Okay.
So it's a changing figure. I mean, that's not the only money that's being spent on
Yes.
the ward. It's the only money that the corporator is allowed to control the spending of on the ward. Otherwise, the ward and all of its inhabitants also benefit from the larger 75,000 crores that are being spent on the
Which
entire
I think
city.
we need to talk about much more. So how
Yes.
does this larger 75,000 crore budget come about?
So there's, if you're asking me about the collection of the funds, there's multiple ways in which it happens. I mean, almost 20 to 25% of the budget comes in from grants that are given by the state and the center. There's about 5 to 10% that comes in from loans and bonds. And then majority of the makeup, the 40-50%, actually is collected by the BMC through, let's say, advertising tax on like hoardings, entertainment tax,
Property tax.
property tax.
Property tax is a big one.
Yes, development charges that they put on builders, water charges. So the BMC has their own ways of collecting.
Yeah, all these high electricity bills we've been paying.
So they're collecting the cash, and then the budget is actually proposed by the municipal commissioner, and it gets first debated and modified sometimes and approved by the standing committee, which comprises of corporators.
Elected officials.
Yeah. And then the final approval lies with the general body of the BMC, which also consists of corporators.
Okay, so if you're wondering how the budget gets decided, so you have 75,000 crores,
Yeah.
12 to 15,000 was allocated for the coastal road.
Sure, yeah.
A probably huge amount was allocated for this Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
So now if you want to have a say on whether we have more coastal road green space development or you want a Ferris wheel or some statue, this is where your corporator gets involved, because it is their job to, when the budget is presented to them, to say, no, we're not doing this, or yes, we are doing this.
Yes.
And in the last 3 years, how has that been happening?
The state government has unilateral control over the functioning of the BMC as of now.
Yeah, so they've done some good things, like say giving more money to each ward, but not to an elected official to use it. That's really weird.
Even that's actually controversial, because as of like 23, the opposition claimed that the 3 crores went only to BJP corporators, and opposition corporators got just 1 crore, which was actually less than the 1.6 that they've gotten before.
It's like, where are they
there's
getting
lots
this
of
extra money from?
There's lots of politics involved in the whole functioning of it. But that's where the sort of push and pull comes in, right? Because the commissioner and the administration is appointed by the state government, which doesn't necessarily have to be the same party that then gets elected to control the BMC through your corporators.
Correct.
So there's like constantly this dynamic of like push and pull going on, which does definitely decrease the sort of overall efficiency and speed of doing things.
Yeah, I think just what you said right now, like if there's any merit to these claims about, say, the state government giving some funds to the incumbent parties corporators versus the opposition corporators, that's one of those things which will just completely destroy our politics.
I mean, it's
because
as
it
of
makes
right now, it's an allegation. It's a claim.
It's an allegation.
I have no reason or proof to believe that.
But you know, people actually say this when the state elections were going on. When we asked people why they would say vote for a party, they're like, you know what, I'm not so sure about this party or that party, but I feel if the BJP gets control in Maharashtra, they will get better funds from the center rather than a Congress-led state. And that was just such a sad thing to hear, because you might as well just have one nation, one election at that point.
Oh my God, no comment at all. I'm not getting made into this conversation.
No, I'm just messing around on that. But the idea is that, yeah, we should not be voting based on central power, because it reduces the effectiveness of local bodies. So hopefully a situation like this
effectiveness, and also for what it's worth, your accountability as, let's say, like we're saying, as a shareholder, is much more when you are of a different party versus when the administration, your board of directors, and in this case, the commissioner or the state government are all, for lack of a better word, conspiring to push one agenda. Your say in that agenda matters very little. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the swiftness of getting things done by having the same party in play also reduces accountability, because there's nobody pulling these people up anymore. That is the problem. I mean, in this case, it's the BJP, but any party in power would have done or has done pretty much exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So
that's why you have it. That's why until you get your foot in the door through a corporator who you have elected, who you hold accountable to something other than bearing a party flag, it's not going to get any changes made. So when you choose your corporator, please don't check who's on the BJP ticket or the Congress ticket or the Shiv Sena ticket. Please check what they are doing after that will serve you.
Absolutely.
And then make a choice.
Yeah.
You should just vote on principle. You don't even get to see who you're voting for. You just get to see the ideology.
No name, anonymously.
Yeah.
It would be pure and absolute chaos. But yes, I agree with the point that you're making, which is that the only basis on which you should vote is what it is that you're getting in return from it, from a policy space more than a political space.
Yeah.
There is, and that definitely has its benefits.
So you were telling me something interesting about how, despite all of this going on with the elections being delayed and a lot of political accusations being thrown about power grabbing, gerrymandering, all this stuff, there was an interesting thing that happened with the appointment of the municipal commissioner.
Yeah, so typically the municipal commissioner is appointed by the state government. What happened before the 2024 Lok Sabha election was that the Election Commission of India sent out an advisory asking for all IAS officers that are either in their home district or that have held a position for more than 3 years to be reshuffled in the interest of fair elections, because it doesn't strike you, but an administrator in that role can definitely affect public perception and the election by, for example, let's say announcing new infrastructure projects in a particular area and so on and so forth.
Like the coastal road.
Yes. The Maharashtra government failed to actually replace Mr. Chahal, who had been in that position for substantially more than 3 years. And
when you say failed to replace, what does that mean?
They did not pay heed to the advisory, at which point in time the ECI then pulled them up and requested the government of Maharashtra to send them a panel of 3 names, out of which the ECI picked Bhushan Gagrani to be the municipal commissioner of Mumbai.
Interesting. So the ECI, when I heard this story, I realized that the ECI has a role in offices which are not electorally decided.
Absolutely, because their job is to ensure free and fair elections, regardless of everything else.
So their argument for saying, hey, why do I have purview over this is because this person can affect free and fair
Exactly.
elections.
Yes. And which is what they did, and which is a phenomenal thing for them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart way to look past what your obvious avenues of election interference would be.
Yeah.
To, hey, this guy announcing a development project. Hey, this guy's not allowing advertising for some party in some area.
Precisely. So
he's
there's
giving preferential treatment to the
Yes.
best spots. He's giving permissions, causing all these delays.
So in the interest of neutrality and fairness, they asked all states to reshuffle existing stuff. And that's how we ended up with our current BMC commissioner.
And is he from any particular party?
There's no such thing as they're never from a particular
because they are all people from the IAS.
Exactly.
But
They're appointed by a state government which is ruled by a particular party.
So the three names that went to the ECI, they were all given by the ruling BJP state government?
Yeah.
So they're all likely to be BJP supporters.
I mean,
do people say that? Do people talk within the civil services? There are these civil servants who are more pro the BJP. There are these civil servants who are
I don't think so. I think in the case of our current commissioner, he's a bright and highly competent man. And I would certainly hope that that was the reason for proposing his name and having him selected. So when you're talking about any IAS officers, they're all brilliant most of the time. So sure it doesn't take a stretch of imagination to believe that any political party would have its agendas behind sending a particular set of names or picking a particular person. But also running something like the BMC ain't no easy task. So you really need a man who's up for the job.
Good. Well, anyways, that is also not in your control. The part which is in your control is what is coming now in October and November, hopefully.
Yes,
We'll be talking more about that. I think
crossed.
we'll be doing a lot more episodes
We will be.
on, I think specific constituencies would be good.
Yeah, we can definitely get
Especially
into that.
ones which we know, and then we can learn how to extrapolate those type of learnings to a larger scale. I
Sure.
think that's how the best way to approach is, because 236 wards, right? We can't go through each one of them. Nor will there be any meaning. But I can go through the ward that I live in.
Yeah.
And I can see that, hey, these are the problems that affect me. This is how these people are saying they will address them.
Absolutely.
I suggest everyone then go and do the same in their ward.
Yeah.
12,000 people, that's what it takes to swing one of these votes.
Yes. At least 12,000.
At least 12,000.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything you want to add?
No, please go out there and vote, regardless of how small you think the election is. It makes a difference.
Yeah. And Lok Tantra, go check out their page. They're going
Yes,
to be
please.
posting
We're
a
going
lot
to be
of...
profiling the candidates, and you can read all about who it is that you want to vote for and why it is that you should vote for them on the website.
And then Lok Tantra is going to help us get those candidates hopefully in studio.
Yes.
And have them answer some questions which are a little more nuanced than, say, I'm going to clean up the streets.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. That's it for today. We will be back with more updates on this BMC election. It's going to be an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Hey, who knows, if they delay it, we'll be talking it for many more years. But hopefully they don't do that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, especially since a certain number of the issues that they had have been sort of put to rest. The OBC issue has been put to rest. The ward line delineation has kind of been put to rest.
Yeah.
They've said it's more or less going to be what it
Yeah.
was in 2017. And yeah, I guess it's all optimistic and looking good over here.
Thank you for having me on.
All right. We'll be back soon. Till then, stay tuned. This is the Overcorrection. I'm Rohan Paranjpe. Thank you.